Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. My name is Sean Hope. I'm the Director of Managed Print Services here at Usherwood, and we've got a special guest with us today, Steve Inch, HP Print Security Strategist, or excuse me, Global Print Security Strategist. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
My
So
pleasure.
I know as we hit 11 o'clock, we'll probably have a few more people jumping in, but I'll get us started because we've got a half-hour time window. We want to make sure we're respectful of people's time commitments there during the day. So let me just kind of get rolling with what we're doing here today and why we're talking about this and stuff like that. Um, so I've been in this industry, the print industry, for going on 3 decades now, and I can tell you that when I first started in this business, it was really talking about the convergence of from analog to digital, and never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd be talking about printers and cybersecurity. Certainly back at that time, fishing was something that necessitated a body of water, but now fishing means something entirely different. So here at Usherwood, our managed print services approach, like the industry, typically is about money efficiencies, operational efficiencies. But starting in 2019, we really changed our focus because what had been theorized became reality, and that is that printers were being used in cyber attacks and cyber campaigns, not so much as the be all end all, the goal, but really as a tool. People using them as tools to get footholds in networks, move laterally, steal credentials, and all the other sorts of things that they would need to do to conduct really nasty programs in there. Fast forwarding through, here we are in 2025, and as we look at the world of cybercrime and cyber attacks, in Q1 of 2025, cyber attacks were up 47% year over year. The biggest verticals that saw the biggest increases and also the largest totals individually were the education, government, and telecom. And I know we have people here on this call today that are in both the education and government verticals. And telecom, well, basically, I think anybody's a customer of a telecom company, so it's all connected somehow or another. And when you look at priorities, when you talk about CISOs, what their priorities are for their cybersecurity initiatives, printers are almost never going to be in that A plus category. Wherever they hit on that list, it's going to be typically further down, and that's also part of what makes them attractive target for the bad guys because they're not looking to go attack the strongest fortress. They're trying to find that weakest link in the corporate security, and fortunately, sometimes that can be printers. And when you look at breaches in general, the majority of breaches begin at endpoints, and printers, that's what they are. They're endpoints on your network. So with that, as I mentioned, we have Steve here. I'm really excited to have Steve here as a guest, and so I want to jump right in to talk about some of the things that are impacting cybersecurity in the print world today. And certainly, everybody knows the biggest buzzword in tech out there is AI, AI, AI. So, Steve, what can you tell us
Yeah.
about how AI is impacting printer security today?
Well, it's interesting. You're absolutely right. And it's an honor to be with all of you today. So just to level set, I lead our print security strategy and product management at HP and from consumer up through enterprise. And one of the realities that we are all facing, I like to say every day you wake up and you step into the octagon. You don't realize it, but the fact of the matter is, it's not a matter of if you're going to get hit. You could be Bruce Lee stepping into the octagon, your opponent's across the way, and you're going to get hit. So the issue is, can you detect what's coming at you offensively? Can you protect yourself, whether that's, a parry or some move? And then what do you do once you get hit? Can you actually recover quickly? And this is the dynamic that we're seeing at the endpoint. And what's you nailed it on the head, Sean. I mean, the reality is this: 90% of cyber attacks originate at the endpoint. That includes printers, it includes PCs, it includes webcams, HVAC systems, whatever you want to put into the IoT category at the endpoint of the network. And you also mentioned this, and it's exactly right. And that is that threat actors are they're very efficient and also lazy. They don't want to do a lot of extra work to get the harvest they want, whether that's a financial harvest or whether that's disruption of infrastructure, whether you're a nation state or a 15-year-old in the basement of your grandparents' house playing a multiplayer game and also hacking on the side. I mean, the reality is, and you've got the full gamut there. So the reality is the threat actor's destination is the broader network. The entry point is just that, is the printer. So I'm going to share just a little bit of information here with the audience. And let me see if it'll allow me to do a quick share. There we go.
And
So, you know, the printer risk areas that you don't realize, these are a number of those areas. Everything from analog fax to output trays, with 75% of data breaches occur at the endpoint. This includes data being left on the printer and removed or exfiltrated out of your environment. Storage media management. Think about printers as PCs and desktop PCs that actually can print. They all have a hard drive. They're all connected to the network. And printers are always the lowest priority for a lot of security teams, and it's not surprising. You talk to any large global enterprise, and they're going to tell you, yeah, we get on average, at least we get this at HP globally. We get our cybersecurity team gets roughly 500 million alerts every month. And this is the reality they're facing. It's alert fatigue and tool fatigue that security teams are really dealing with. So from a print perspective, this is where the risk areas are. And these are the kinds of attacks that we've documented and seen over the years. And more, this is everything from a man-in-the-middle attack, which is the ability of an attacker to get the access to the print stream from a laptop to a destination printer. They break into, if you don't have TLS 1.3, but eventually that will get cracked as well. You want to ensure that data stream right there is encrypted so that they can't access that data stream before it gets to the printer. Hopefully everyone on the call has implemented a secure pull printing capability in their environment. So these are the kinds of things that we're seeing. We're even seeing printers botnetted to crypto mine. I mean, it's all across the gamut of what we're seeing.
yeah, and as we talk about all the different technologies, the way things are being attacked, so technology can be used both for offensive and defensive purposes. And so certainly the bad guys are using the advancing technology like AI to develop new offensive measures and zero-day attacks and things like that. And when we talk about AI, for a long time AI was what was coming. It was the future, but it's not the future now. It's our present. It's our reality. But so
Yeah.
as we recognize that as today's reality, there's also the question of what's next. And I know one of the things that's been in the news lately is the future of Q day or quantum computing day, and that's coming down the pipe. And frankly, I can tell you, I've been trying to brush up on that because I really didn't know much about it until very recently. But can you kind of give us a little overview from the ground up of what people are talking about with quantum computing and how that would impact industries in general for cybersecurity, and then specifically with the print industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, everybody says, oh, quantum threats are out there and everybody's trying to be fearful. And, the reality is this, that the quantum computer, and there's about 3 or 4, 5 of them on the planet right now, they have the ability to it's a whole it's exponentially more powerful. When you look at existing classical computing, you're looking at linear bits, and that's the unit of information, is a bit, and it's 1 or a 0. And with a quantum computer, if you get a 10 qubit, they're called qubits, which is the quantum bit, and if you have access to let's say a 100 qubit quantum computer, which isn't that far in the distance, or in the future. You will be able to calculate simultaneously over 1,000 billion calculations in this. I mean, simultaneously. We're talking about an exponential impact. The point of this is that current encryption today, which is the lock on current data and digital signatures, will be relegated obsolete because those cyber ciphers will be able to be just immediately, broken. And what that does is leaves you to what this screen is showing right now. It leaves you totally exposed to a myriad of threats in your environment. Now, you have to look at data points in the marketplace, and one of the key data points we always follow, because we work with the National Security Agency and with NIST and the U.S. government. And the feds have said that originally they said as of 2030, they would no longer buy printers or PCs, software or firmware that does not have what is called quantum resistant digital signature encrypted, so that its encryption is digitally signed, and the firmware and software. And as of 2030, they would no longer purchase anything that is non-quantum resistant at that level. They pulled that up to 2027 2 months ago. So that guidance, that stake in the ground has now, I want to be crystal clear, that is for what they refer to as national security systems. Those are where devices and infrastructure where top secret data is flowing. But as of 2027, yeah, they're not going to purchase anything that is not quantum resistant. The reason this is important is as you look at your fleet of not just printers, but all IoT devices and infrastructure, you have to think about what your plan is. If you're on a contract for 3, 5, 7 years, you want to ensure that the devices you have under contract are capable of, at its fundamental level, a quantum resistant capability. And this is at the very foundational level on the chip, on the formatter of a printer. That's exactly what you need, is what is called post-quantum cryptography on that digital signature.
Yeah, and as you talked about the federal government moving up their date for that, that kind of correlates with a announcement from Google's research team last week about the when quantum computing is going to be coming out, because they were able to find that they had 20 times the power to break the encryption than previously thought, and so it was moving up the dates of expected. There's that when Q Day will come to the marketplace out there. It was a distant future, and it's certainly an estimate, but it looks like that the estimates are sooner rather than later, which is why it's not an emergency or alert, but it's definitely an encouragement to take serious action and begin planning if you haven't already.
Yeah, and I want to make sure everyone's aware that this is very unlikely that this will roll out, quantum threats will roll out like a Y2K scenario. You may hear some people refer to this as a Y2Q. Don't, that's crazy. It's actually most likely going to start with our public sector and government. So you're going to have nation states who have the financial wherewithal to get access to a quantum computer will target other nations, right? And so the Fed is going to be the priority in the US, as are other global governments. Then you're going to see it filter into where threat actors can get the best and greatest harvest, whether that is disruption of infrastructure, so transportation, utilities, energy, or where they're going to get financial harvest most quickly, which is, of course, healthcare and financial and insurance. So these are the areas that we will see it roll over time, but now is the time to be thinking about this, no question.
Yeah, and I heard one of the topics around this was that the tactic of store now and decrypt later, because
Yeah.
just because the quantum decryption technology isn't available now, it doesn't mean it won't. It will be, frankly, in the future. So they can steal something now and decrypt it later. And I kind of thought about it as similar to how the cyclist Lance Armstrong got busted. For years he was winning the Tour de France and saying, "Hey, I never failed any of my drug samples," but they kept B samples of those blood tests. And when they did develop the technologies, they were able to go back and find that, yep, sure enough, he was cheating that whole time. So it's store now, decrypt later.
Yeah, I
Really.
mean that capture and decrypt attacks. That has been going on for quite a few years, actually. China has exhibited this. We've seen it from work we've done with the French government, and they've been seeing attacks that are very similar. And so that's happening, and it's something you want to be, really cognizant of. This is just one of the dynamics at play. You did mention AI, and I want to throw out a couple of statistics. Since the launch of ChatGPT back about 4 or 5 years ago, we've seen an increase in ransomware attacks at 76%. In the last month, and I just checked this, we've seen an increase in phishing attacks of 1,265% in the last month. The reason is they've weaponized AI, and threat actors are taking off the shelf malware that they can get easily on the dark web. They can apply generative AI that a 5-year-old can type, and then they change the code enough, just enough, so that it becomes an unknown attack to existing cybersecurity systems or antivirus software. And the interesting thing with printers is there's no antivirus software available for printers because it doesn't exist. And primarily because we all have, all the print vendors have unique operating systems and firmware. So it's incumbent upon that the manufacturer you're working with through Usherwood is providing a really deep stack of default on out of box security capabilities on those devices. And you want to have those things we talked about in the octagon: the detection, the protection, and the self healing recovery right out of box.
Yeah, and so now that we've probably given everybody some nightmares to enjoy, let's shift gears a little bit. And I'm sure many folks on here are familiar with something called print nightmare. It's a vulnerability that was exploited over the last few years in the Windows print spooler, and then has led to Microsoft making some adjustments to move to their Windows protected print and driverless printing. So, Steve, I was wondering if you could kind of talk to a little bit about that with print drivers and the vulnerabilities there and the impact of this driverless printing that people might see.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that is that has occurred. I mean, Microsoft does a yeoman's effort in security. The print driver infrastructure for Windows has has traditionally been a challenge. It's roughly represents 10% of all of Microsoft's attacks and vulnerabilities is in that print infrastructure. So they did an internal deep dive in terms of assessing the concept of third-party discrete print drivers using Windows, and they found that they can no longer, it just is no longer feasible to constantly patch and secure those capabilities. So they have stipulated as of 2027. Now, the reality of how this rolls out in all of our audiences' environments is up to them. But the reality is, Microsoft says by 2027, we will no longer be updating any third-party discrete print drivers. So HP has our universal print driver, other vendors have their drivers. What they've done is they've gone to the Internet Printing Protocol, IPP, as a secure alternative. And this means that that vendors like HP will be integrating with the print support application, or PSA. And that is a critical element. This is currently, meaning these discrete drivers are currently a choice of admins to either invoke or not. But by 27, it will be default on. And so it will not be, Windows will, you'll need to have that PSA and what is called Windows Protected Print if you're using and, enjoying a Windows environment. So it's absolutely critical you think about how that transition is going to unfold in your environment. And if you have any questions, of course, rely on Usherwood and their team to help navigate what that looks like and should look like for you. So you don't have a lot of like printer spool or print server disruption. And that's where a lot of the malware they've experienced with Stuxnet back in 2010 and also with the print nightmare in recently in 2021.
Yeah, and as we talk about, print drivers and vulnerabilities from them, I think one of the interesting news articles that came out earlier this month was that a company called ProColored, they're a manufacturer of some unique niche inkjet printers, and they're out of China. And it turned out that their print drivers, they unknowingly had malware had been injected into their print drivers. So whether it was when you buy the printer and you got it with a thumb drive to load the software, or you were downloading it from the web, there was malware injected into their print driver that was a Bitcoin stealer. So they got away with about $1 million of Bitcoin, or somebody got away with it because they don't think it was intentional on their part. But that brings up the issue of supply chain security. So whether it's for your driver, the chips and the toner cartridges and your firmware, these are all areas of supply chain concern for these devices that are really, as we said, these are endpoints behind your firewall. So can you talk a little bit about the issues around supply chain security in print?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up because the interesting aspect of supply chain security, I let a lot of our customers and our partners like Usherwood, we when you purchase a printer or a PC, you need to realize it's not just a printer or PC decision, it's a security decision. But even more importantly, it is you're buying the entire supply chain of that vendor. And why do I say that? I say that because what if we actually sourced a malicious component out of China or somewhere in China or Asia, and we were not familiar with this particular supplier? It's a new supplier, say, and we would always be familiar, but let's say they had a malicious intent. And we then invoked, brought that component into the factory, installed it in the device. That flows through distribution, from the factory to distribution, through our partners into your environment as a customer. And no one knows, whether it's there. What are you going to do to protect against that? Well, it's critical, that the supply chain will do its utmost to not allow something like that to happen, number one. Then you need the embedded capabilities to detect that malware that was in that malicious component. And we're doing some really interesting things in terms of detection in the device that's out of box right there. But from a supply chain perspective, you want to make sure your vendor is certified with ISO 20243 as an example. You want to ensure and see their path. For example, do their trucks have locked doors when it's in transit from distribution to the channel partner, to Usherwood? Do you want to make sure, at every step of the supply chain, that the threats are remediated, and there are many along that train. So it's really critical that the vendor you're working with has a clear visibility and management of their overall supply chain security as a result.
Yeah. And you had mentioned earlier about, technology that is, secure by design and secure by default. And as this is, as you said, technology, and all technology has been rapidly changing. And so can you kind of give people an idea of some of today's security features, and we talk about secure by design and default, and
Yeah.
compared to the deficiencies of older technology and also, frankly, cheap technology that's out there.
Yeah, yeah, and you want to think of not only, at least in the printer world, not only of the device, but also of the toner cartridges, and that they're secure, from pirating and also from, other malicious malware. But the interesting thing is, yes, we call it chip to cloud. We have security capabilities in that entire continuum. So at the root level, the root of trust in the kernel on the formatter, which is like a PC has a motherboard, we have formatters and printers. We have the trusted platform module 2.0. That's where is its own secure physical domain that houses a lot of the secrets and the digital certificates and signatures present that the device uses for its own identity to other infrastructure to confirm in a zero trust environment. We've got the quantum resistance at that initial BIOS firmware level at boot. Then we have what is called HP Sure Start, which is also with self-healing. That is the BIOS, if it detects at boot up malware in its BIOS, and they're going underneath the operating system, they being threat actors, injecting. And we can detect that. It does an automatic self-healing reboot from a golden untouched copy of the BIOS on the formatter. Then you have a layer. The next layer is memory protection, and we offer the only capability of zero-day detection and immediate self-healing remediation, as well as hardware-based runtime intrusion detection. Then you have what we call connection inspector, which is looking at outbound DNS packet communication from the printer to remote servers. That if that behavior is anomalous and very weird, the printer knows it shouldn't behave that way, shuts down and does a self-healing reboot. So these are examples of some of the key embedded capabilities that you want to make sure are present in your devices that you acquire. In addition, you want to have a very powerful compliance tool, a software application that is extra beyond the device that allows you to manage the security policies and compliance of the fleet. So these are some of the key things that you want to make sure you look out for.
Great. And as we approach the end of our 30-minute time window here, I do want to point out there's a dialog box in the upper right of your screen with a question mark. So if you have a question, please feel free to submit it. If we run out of time today to answer it, we'll be sure to get back to you on that. But as we kind of wrap this up, can you tell us kind of like best practices and things people can be doing and be thinking about going forward to protect themselves?
Yeah, exactly. As a key takeaway and action items for everyone, just make sure these four steps are in play in your environment. I can tell you, I don't know, it doesn't matter how big an enterprise you are, globally or otherwise. The fact is, this is oftentimes not occurring. The first is you want to have devices in your environment that are continuously monitoring and self-healing. You want a secure print configuration of every device and device groups. You want to use a software application like Security Manager, and you can work with Usherwood to ensure you get that and have that in play and in place. That will secure across your fleet with automated capabilities. And you put a new device on your network and it has instant on and it applies that security policy. You want to ensure that you're keeping firmware and software up to date. Talk to Usherwood today about firmware vulnerability assessment. They have one killer tool that in 5 seconds will tell you how vulnerable you are, and they can help remediate that. Then you want to ensure you're deploying multi-factor authentication of users and admin on the devices for access and authorization to operating systems and applications running on the printers. And you want to make sure, because we all know that the threat landscape is continually evolving, you want consistent monitoring of the print environment. This is absolutely critical because um, printers are a low priority for a lot of teams, and that's exactly where the vulnerabilities will occur. And it's exactly where threat actors are going to get access and ever escalating permissions into your infrastructure.
That's great, Steve. Thank you so much for all that information. So hey, our 30 minutes is up. I know it flew right by for me. I thought this was fascinating. I hope everybody else attending did as well. For all you folks out there, you will be receiving an email thanking you for attending the webinar with a survey as well as a link to the recording of this session. So, Steve, thank you so much for your insight. Much appreciated. Look forward to talking some more in the future. All right.
Great. Thank you
Thank
all
you,
for
everybody.
joining. And it's great to be with you, Sean. Thanks.
All right. Bye.